All right, I'm going to call the Kalamazoo County Board of Commissioners Committee of the Whole November 8th, 2023 to order. First on the agenda is roll call.
Commissioner DeLue.
Here.
Commissioner Gissler. Absent. Vice Chair Pro Tem Hepler is absent. Commissioner Mazer. Here. Commissioner Morales.
Present.
Vice Chair Ray. Commissioner Stubbs is absent. Chair Taylor.
Here.
Commissioner Wheeler. Here. 6 present.
And I did receive phone calls from Commissioner Stubbs and Commissioner Gissler saying that they would be late, and Commissioner Stubbs is at her mother's funeral, so she will not. Up is public comment. This is an opportunity for citizens to address the Board of Commissioners. Please give us your name and address, and you have up to 3 minutes. Thank you. Seeing none, are there calls on tape?
Yes, Dina will roll the one call in just a moment. So that's it, Chair.
That's it. Okay. Next, the Central County Transportation Authority, that's been moved, correct? And next we have interviews for the Land Bank Authority. And first up is Riley Lekomsky? Lekomsky, okay. Come on up. You want to give just a brief, 1-minute introduction of yourself, and then we'll start with Commissioner DeLue with the first question.
Thank you for that. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Riley Lekomsky. I'm currently a Director of Economic Development at Southwest Michigan First. I live right off of West Main. I'm originally from right outside of Ann Arbor in Chelsea, Michigan. Went to school at Western Michigan University. I've worked in economic development around the region, also out in Kansas, and I've currently been in my position for 6 months.
Thank you very much. Commissioner DeLu?
Yeah, Riley, thank you for your interest. What do you know about this advisory board and why are you interested in serving on it?
Thank you. I know that it is an exciting time to be a part of a land bank in Michigan. Just watching land banks grow over the years from entities mainly just used to take properties off the tax rolls and kind of, redevelop them and reshape the vision for their development. Now to see them tackling more and more transformational projects, as we've seen with the East Side Sunrise Plaza and the Washington Square projects that the land bank has done, kind of now into a new phase where it's becoming a core part of the development process, where, as the, kind of in the incentive process throughout the state of Michigan, properties within land banks can be used as brownfields, and, seeing those type of tax increment finance responsibilities now kind of going towards land banks for different residential and industrial projects. I just kind of feel called to serve with my interest to the board to kind of provide some of my experience in multiple states and kind of see that those new opportunities are seen to the fullest.
Riley, I'm John Gisler. I represent District 6. Good to see you. What experience do you have that is related to the work of the advisory authority? This could be professional or experience you have from your community involvements.
Yeah, thank you. My professional experience includes working with the Van Buren County Land Bank when I was a economic development manager for Market Van Buren. I helped them identify different parcels to be used in their land banks and what kind of redevelopment opportunities might coincide there. And then when I was an executive director of economic development in Kansas, I helped start a couple land banks in Caney and Cherryville, Kansas. We use them in a very traditional sense, helping take dilapidated housing and kind of, give them a clean bill of health, if you will, and kind of, reestablish the vision for their redevelopment and see that any developer that undertook them kind of, followed through. And then now, having been involved in multiple industrial and residential projects in Kalamazoo County, and being a citizen and a former student here, I just think that gives me a pretty good idea of kind of the real estate scene around the county and being able to provide value that way.
Thank you.
Hi, Wendy Mazer, District 8. Share what you have learned from working with people from different cultures.
Yeah, thank you, Wendy. I've been blessed to work with people from different cultures from all over the world. Being in economic development, you get to work with people from all walks of life and all areas of the world. Particularly when I was in Kansas, we had a very dense Hispanic population, as well as when I was in Van Buren and Cass County, a more prominent Amish population, and on different attraction projects, working with people from Latin America and Asia. And I think really what it has shown me is the strength of diversity in teams and the strength of kind of the adaptability and resiliency it gives everyone. It's always a joy to kind of learn where someone is from, kind of meet them where they're at, and kind of discover ways to kind of change your own communication to coincide with their cultures and kind of build efficient teams. I would say I would look forward to learning much more about this as well through any sort of relationship with the land bank as well. I mean, the board and the work that they do, cast such a vast net, and I would hope to continue to bring that cultural diversity background there.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Tammy Ray. I represent District 1. What training or education have you received in diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice? And how will you use what you learned in your work with this advisory board?
Thank you. Yeah, I've been fortunate enough to receive training on diversity, equity, inclusion in many facets of my life. Starting out in college, being a part of the Western Student Association there, they had opportunities for a few different trainings. When I was out in Kansas, I attended a couple classes, equity and outcomes for economic development and equity and opportunity for economic developers. And then here as well, working for Southwest Michigan First, we have a diversity, inclusion, action committee, which puts on great programming for us to be exposed to different ideals. And I would say just the, how I use what I've learned for the Land Bank Authority. I think I'll just, the main thing I'll do is keep having an open mind, keep asking a lot of questions, keep striving to understand communication and cultural barriers, and kind of using those questions to help educate others and bring others to the table.
Thank you.
John Taylor, District 5. What do you expect the advisory board authority to give to the community, and how can you help the work of the advisory board authority?
Yeah, I would expect an advisory board to give the community a great sense of direction for the land bank, a great vision for the future, and to also, provide a lot of connections as well as the board kind of, has their own networks as well. So when talking about what I can bring to the advisory board in those aspects, I mean, being familiar with different sort of land bank structures and opportunities throughout the country through, my networks I've built, being familiar with different ways that land banks can partner with industrial, residential projects to kind of, serve more as an incentive, I think would be a value add to the board, just kind of helping set direction and expectation for projects I'm aware of across the country and across the state. And then lastly, to bring, connections to the table, getting the pleasure to work with so many of the, real estate developers and real estate agents within the county and the region, being able to kind of, just gain a lot of knowledge of different properties across and different opportunities for the land bank.
Hey there and welcome. I'm Cease Morales, District 3. What are 3 things that a member of the advisory board authority should consider?
Yeah, 3 things an advisory board should consider. I think primarily when you're in a board position, you should always consider your own bias in a situation, whether that be explicit or implicit. Knowing that you are a servant in those situations, and not to let your own motivations get ahead of you. I think you should always be considering the future. I think it is the staff's responsibility to kind of really tackle the day-to-day and help execute the vision that the board sets forth. But the board should really be taking a step back and looking at things from 30,000 feet and kind of leading that direction for the organization. And then lastly, as I mentioned before, just consider how you can use your own network and your own connections and your own influence to help better the mission of the board which you serve.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Abigail Wheeler, District 4. What is the greatest strength that you will bring to the advisory board authority?
Yeah, I think my greatest strength will be innovation. I think I love a lot of the work the land bank's doing now. Just being so interested in research and what land banks are doing around the country and different opportunities, what other ones are doing across the state. I think it would be a value add for me to help bring some of those new nuggets to this land bank authority to help optimize processes.
I'll ask this one. Are you available for the meeting dates and times associated with this advisory board authority?
I am.
Okay. And do you have any questions for us?
Yeah, I know a few of you are involved with the land bank authority, and some more than others. What do you guys think is there? I'd be curious to hear what you think their biggest room for improvement is.
Well, you're going to get, like I said, if you ask us a question, you're going to get 7 different answers from all 7 of us. But I think collectively as a board, I can speak to this. I think we as a board understand the potential of the land bank and how we got involved early. Our former treasurer Balkema got involved early when they were just creating land banks in the state of Michigan. And now with the new authorities that they do have, it's going to be a huge parking spot for just a large scale of economic development, whether it be residential or commercial or a lot of these properties that need to get, as you say, back onto the tax rolls. My motivation for the land bank, I think that we can always make sure that we get it back on the tax rolls and understand that that is the motivation, and that's the reason that it's there. But not to hold properties in perpetuity or for long periods of time at the land bank. That's is there any other? Mr. Gissler?
Thank you, Chair. Riley, I represent a very rural part of Kalamazoo County, and I'd like to see more land bank activity outside of the central cities. I know that's where a lot of it's needed and a lot of it's appropriate, but it is a countywide land bank, and I'd like to see more effort directed toward uncovering something out in the boondocks. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for your time.
All right. Next up, Sharon Ferraro. We'll start question number 1. Abby, we'll start with you this time.
Do you want me to talk about myself a little bit too? Okay.
Yes, please.
Okay. I'm Sharon Ferraro, Kalamazoo native. My family's been here since the 1920s, unless you count my great-great-grandfather who came just after the Civil War on the 14th of April from Germany, 1865, and he kind of missed his chance. So anyway, I'm a Kalamazoo native. I live in the Vine neighborhood. I just retired from working for the city of Kalamazoo as the Historic Preservation Coordinator, and was very involved with community planning and economic development in that department, as well as the buildings division, so building code issues and that kind of thing. So I'm very invested in Kalamazoo County, not just the city.
Thank you. Commissioner Wheeler?
Hi there, Abigail Wheeler, District 4. My question for you is, what do you know about this advisory board authority and why are you interested in serving on it?
Thank you. I know the land bank is a powerful tool. I've seen it in action in Flint, Detroit, other places all over the country. And I know that in Kalamazoo County, we've done a great deal with it. It's for revitalizing and repurposing property in the county. When I was working for the city, I frequently interacted with the land bank as they moved through a project. I was especially impressed with their attempt to save the streetcar barn at Cameron and Washington, which did not happen tragically, but it was a real, very serious attempt to save a building that is, now gone, sadly. But I would like to be part of that decision-making process. So I'm really hoping that I will be able to serve and bring my knowledge of the city and the county to this board.
Hello and welcome. I'm Montice Morales,
Hi.
District 3. What experience do you have that is related to the work of the advisory board? This could be professional or experience you have from the community, and you talked a little bit about that.
Well, I served for the 20 years as the preservation coordinator in Kalamazoo. I started out just before I was given that job. I did a citywide survey of the city of Kalamazoo. So I walked all 25 square miles of the city looking at the houses, the buildings, the commercial buildings, everything, and doing it's called a historic resource survey. I did the same thing for Ashimo Township a couple years earlier, so I know Ashimo Township pretty well. I've done National Register nominations for the Village of Richland, for a farm right next to KVCC in Texas Township, and for a house and farm out in Augusta. I know the county pretty well. I know, and I agree, I'd love to see more happening in the rural areas because we've got some treasures out there, but we also have a lot of potential things that could happen out there. I'm currently serving on the City of Kalamazoo Brownfield Authority and Economic Development Committee. So that's kind of like, I know the small things. I can look at house to house, business to business, building to building, but I'm also learning a great deal about how brownfield redevelopment, TIF, and all those tools are used in our area, and how valuable they've been, how useful they've been to revitalize the county.
Thank you.
Share what you've learned from working with people from different cultures.
The biggest thing that I've learned is that you have to listen and respect everyone's personal lived experience and their point of view, and that by working together, we can do a heck of a lot more than we can by one person or one small group of people making all the decisions and then moving on quickly without getting the input. I really am enjoying watching how more diverse names, more diverse people are coming to the table we're always there waiting to come to the table and to help make decisions and make the county a pretty neat place to be. So.
Vice Chair Ray?
Chair, good evening, Tammy Ray. I represent District 1. What training or education have you received in diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice? And how will you use what you learned in your work with this advisory board?
Well, starting in 1969, when I was one of Zach Hamlet's students at Kalamazoo Central High in the first Black History class ever offered in the Kalamazoo Public Schools, I've been learning a great deal in that sense. I have had all of the training, the diversity training that was offered by the city of Kalamazoo, and I'm part of 2 different national organizations that I work for, as needed, that have also gone through diversity training on a national level with the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions and with the Michigan Historic Preservation Network. So I've gone through a great deal of diversity training, and it was really interesting to see how the national level training was a little bit different from the local training, just because they have a broader vision of what we're trying to accomplish. So I've had a great deal of training in diversity and inclusion. And what I really learned is that we need to utilize everyone's knowledge and experiences to really get things done and move forward together.
Hi, I'm Wendy Mazer, District 8. What do you expect, am I in the right one? Number 5, right? Am I number 5? Okay. What do you expect the advisory board to give to the community, and how can you help the work of the advisory board?
I expect the advisory board to give an opportunity to transform properties, individual properties and large chunks of property as they come under the purview of the advisory board. And especially to help marginalized community get that one extra step up so that they can also be participating at the highest and best level that they can and are interested in participating in. How can I help? I think I can bring my understanding of the history of Kalamazoo County, where we've been in the past, what we have tried in the past, as a backdrop for present-day decision-making. The context of the property sometimes, its site, how the land was divided and why, the history of the property and its uses all tell the story of an area. It may or may not be appropriate to consider history in making a decision about a property in its new reuse, but it is always useful to know that history. Thank you.
Sharon, I'm John Gissler. I represent a big rural chunk of the county, District 6. And I would like to know, what are 3 things that a member of this advisory authority should consider?
Well, I can't be quite as specific as the gentleman before me because he has a great deal of economic development experience, it sounds like. But I think that a member of the advisory board should consider the benefit to the county and the community, repurposing sound structures, and adding especially to the supply of safe, affordable housing in the county, in Kalamazoo County.
Thank you.
Ms. Ferraro, what is the greatest strength that you would bring to this advisory?
An understanding of older buildings, their strengths, weaknesses, and hazards, as well as a wide-ranging knowledge of appropriate rehabilitation techniques. Now, keep in mind that some of my earliest experience with the land bank was when they came into ownership of quite a large number of deteriorated housing. And so that's part of where my point of view comes from, is I wish we could have saved a lot more of that. But I also recognize the fact that even if the land bank had gone on a very aggressive trying to save and rehab those buildings, they would not have been able to find the contractors able to do the work because there's a severe shortage of contractors across the board to do any work on housing, older housing. While I have devoted my career to historic preservation, I feel that preservation is a tool to bring to the table in decision-making. It is not the only tool or the highest and best good. I want Kalamazoo to prosper and continue to be a place people want to live in and a place they can identify with. And I think considering a little bit of the history and the overall context of properties can sometimes make it possibly lead to a more attractive, maybe even charismatic outcome.
These are easy ones. Are you available for the meeting dates, times associated with the Advisory Board Authority?
Yeah, I'm retired.
Okay. And do you have any questions for us?
About 300, but I couldn't formulate them all and put them together and actually get them in this time period, so.
and you might get 300 questions, you'd probably get 2,700 different answers.
Easily. I understand that.
Cool. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Next up, Loretta.
Chair Loretta is online and Dina will bring her over in just a moment.
Thank you. Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear us?
Yes, I can now hear you if I couldn't before.
No worries. If you want to give a brief 1-minute, introduction, and then Commissioner DeLu will ask the first question.
Yes, I am a mortgage loan officer at Horizon Bank down in our Portage location and down in Three Rivers. I've done mortgages now for 3 years. Prior to that, I was a musician here in Kalamazoo. So.
Commissioner DeLu.
Loretta, thank you for your interest. What do you know about this advisory board and why are you interested in serving it?
I first actually learned about the Kalamazoo Land Bank because my husband and I bought one of the land bank homes here on North Rose Street. So immediately could see what a great job that had been. The quality of the build was amazing, and it was noticeable the impact that those homes had directly in the neighborhood. So since then, I've kept tabs on the Land Bank Authority and really respect the work that we've done in Kalamazoo.
Loretta, I'm John Gisler. I represent a big chunk of rural Kalamazoo County, District 6, and I'd like to have you share with us what you've learned from working with people from different cultures.
Yes, a lot of my work, I work with clients from many cultures, and certainly I learned to listen to the differences and what I can learn from the people I'm working with, and learning the importance of different voices and working to make sure that all of us are building a fair and equitable workspaces and, of course, places to live. So.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Wendy Mazer, District 8.
I skipped.
Oh, you did skip,
I
okay.
messed Wendy up, sorry.
Okay. So you asked 3.
Yes.
Okay, I'll ask 2. Is that okay? All right, okay. What experience do you have that is related to the work of the advisory board? This could be professional or experience you have from the community.
Yeah, I've served on the housing task force for Isaac. I was on there, learned a lot about what that housing task force is doing and advocating for fair and equitable and affordable housing in Kalamazoo. I also serve on the multicultural committee at my bank, where we also talk about promoting multicultural experiences and working for inclusion within the bank. So.
Nice question. Are you related to Igor?
Yes, I actually know you, Wendy.
Okay, I thought so. Say hi to Igor.
Yeah, I will, yeah.
Hello, Tammy Ray. I represent District 1. What training or education have you received in diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice? The second part, how will you use what you have learned in your work with this advisory board?
Yes, I've mentioned I serve on the multicultural committee at my bank that was established to promote diversity and inclusion. I also am a member of the program development committee on the Greater Kalamazoo Association of Realtors, and I'm on the committee for planning our diversity and inclusion event. It's actually happening tomorrow. So I haven't received formal training and classes yet. I do have some scheduled through my bank that they're offering for us. But I have scheduled myself in and tried to involve myself in many opportunities as I can. to learn about diversity and inclusion.
John Taylor, District 5. What do you expect the Advisory Board Authority to give to the community? How can you help the work of the Advisory Board Authority?
Yes, so what I would expect is creative thinking to use open real estate opportunities in the city to grow the city economically and promote fair, equitable, affordable housing wherever we can. I think I can bring in a lot of my experience within real estate and knowledge of financing. I also can utilize all of the bank's resources and access to HUD and other Community Reinvestment Act data that we could use if we have needed to do any data review for projects for the land bank.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Morales.
Thank you, Chair. Hello there and welcome. Montice Morales, District 3. What are 3 things that a member of the advisory board should consider?
I believe the first thing would be to consider if you have any personal conflicts that would prevent you from being able to give a fair and unbiased opinion on a subject related to the Land Bank Committee. I think someone on the committee which have direct knowledge of real estate, construction, financing, HUD regulations, or low to moderate income financing opportunities. And then a personal connection and resources that would enhance the work of the committee.
Thank you.
Hi there, Abigail Wheeler, District 4. My question is, what is the greatest strength that you will bring to the advisory board?
Yes, I think, again, it's my background in housing. I'm quite passionate about low to moderate income housing and certainly working towards projects on affordable housing. I have firsthand experience seeing the affordable housing crisis that we're up against certainly across Michigan, but across the country. I'm known as a very creative thinker and problem solver, so I think I could participate in ideas that the land bank would be looking for what we can do to promote great housing opportunities in Kalamazoo.
Thank you. And these last 2 questions, first one's really easy. Are you available for the meeting dates, times associated with this advisory board?
Yes, I am. Yep.
And do you have any questions for us?
Yes, I guess what I would ask is what kind of challenges do you see is the land bank anticipating in the near future with potential budget cuts or changes in administration?
Well, I think there'd be a lot of different answers, but I know one thing that sticks out to me is the funding structure. After the Raffaelli case, it's going to make it a lot more difficult for when these properties do get, rehabbed and fixed up and then, sold, to be able to recoup those costs. I think they're going to have to look for more creative ways with the brownfield and with other sort of things and kind of being, more of like a parking lot, basically, with a lot of enabling legislation to have. That's the only way I see how they're going to be able to long-term supply revenue. They can't, become an apartment complex or become some sort of, make their money off of rental income. They've got to get properties back onto the tax rolls. And in order to do that, they've got to find funding structures that make sense in order to keep the operation going. That's my thoughts. But there could be a lot of different ideas from the commission as a whole. And I know the land bank, probably has a lot of different ideas within themselves. So, but that's my personal thing. I think it's one of the biggest challenges the land bank's going to face the next 5 to 10 years.
All right, thank you.
Well, thank you very much for your time. We'll be deliberating and making a decision in the next 2 weeks.
All right, thank you.
Speaking of which, start the deliberations. Commissioner Gissler.
Thank you, Chair. Before we start to deliberate on the candidates, and I got to say they were 3 excellent candidates, I'm going to compliment Dina or whoever is back there pulling the trigger, and we get good sound. I like that.
Any discussion on the three candidates? Commissioner Gissler.
I'll try to encapsulate what I learned from each of the three. We have Riley, who has an economic development history, excellent. We have Sharon, who has a historical site development background, excellent. We've certainly got some good historical sites, not necessarily all ready for housing, but you know, that's a good background. And the last, Loretta brings in things like Isaac experience and a mortgage loan officer type stuff, financial. You know, all good. How many do we get to vote for?
We
Oh,
only
golly.
get to vote for one. And we used to have just a liaison as a commissioner to the land bank, and now we have a full-blown member of the land bank. So I guess, I mean, I hate to put you on the spot, Vice Chair, but if you could just, what do you think the biggest needs are? Because all three of those candidates were good. They brought different strengths. But what are the needs, I guess, of the land bank right now as far as you think that we could use?
So I feel like you are putting me on the spot. I think that the land bank currently has a really good board, and I think everything that's needed is there. I do also agree that we have three really good candidates, and it's hard to choose one. Board Appointments Committee did a really good job because there were 9 applicants, and you're down to these 3 really good candidates. But if I had to choose one, my recommendation would be Riley because of his economic development background and the work that he has done at other land banks in other states. The knowledge that he will bring to the board, I think, will be valuable. But I also think that Sharon was a really good candidate as well. So it's hard for me to choose.
Yeah, I think I hate to, sorry, I put you on the spot like that, but I've attended a couple of those land bank meetings, and they are, I will say, they are taking on a larger and larger role. There are a lot of projects going on in the land bank right now, and it's, they've got everything from the Edison Neighborhood Project to they've got a retirement home project, residential living. There's a lot of things in the fire over there. So the organizational aspect of what Riley brings, I think, he's done this work before. He's actually set up land banks before. I would lean towards him as well, just because of that expertise, I think would be useful on that. And I think that the infrastructure of the land bank, as well as the staffing and everything else, will need to increase to absorb these larger and larger projects. So those are my 2 cents. Mr. Gissel.
Thank you, Chair. Is our land bank director, Sid Ellis, in the room? You guys are all hiding in the shadows back there. I don't see Sid, but I'd love to hear what he would say. I appreciate Tammy Ray popping in and, giving the benefit of your sitting with the board, and then after what you said, John, if Sid doesn't come in and say Riley sucks, I'll vote for Riley. Sorry, Ryan.
John, if it wasn't for you, I don't know if we get like at least a couple dozens of people watching us, and I appreciate that. Commissioner DeLue.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I'm on the Board Appointments Committee, and this is the most frustrating part of my job, is having one opening and 3 extremely qualified individuals, especially, I mean, it's a volunteer position. These people are stepping up, and we appreciate it. And to tell them, no, it's really hard, but so I just want to thank Sharon and Loretta and Riley, because it's tough, and I hate it, but thank you for your interest, and I'll be supporting most likely Ms. Ray's recommendation.
Yeah, I kind of think we've got sort of consensus, but can we also put in that the send a letter to the other two candidates to keep them on file, because those were just three, the first two especially were just knockout interviews. And that way, when an opening becomes available, then we have those guys right on the ready. Commissioner Gissler.
Are we expecting more turnover in the next year, year and a half, something like that? I haven't looked to see when the terms expire. You happen to know, Tammy? Oh, I'm so glad I could put you on the spot.
I think it's in our civic clerk. Makeup. Nope, it's not in our thing. We got the interview questions, the board request forms. We can get it to you by the next meeting, or by the 7 o'clock.
It's a curiosity more than anything. I'd like to be able to keep the two non-accepted candidates, as you said, kind of on board to step in if we have another opening coming up.
Absolutely, I think that makes sense, and I'll direct administration and Dina to, next time that opening comes up in the land bank, to ask them if they want to reapply. Commissioner Mazer.
I just want to agree that I really think that we've got three excellent candidates, and it's hard to choose.
Okay, any other commissioner comments? Moving on, preliminary report on the, Dale, I'm sorry. There.
Thank you, John. There's two terms that expire the end of September of next year, so it's going to be almost a full year before.
What I plan on doing is just putting, I've gathered consensus. I'll put Riley on the next agenda, and then we can either vote that up. But I think I've got consensus here. Next is preliminary report on the opioid community needs assessment presentation.
Good evening. I just want to introduce one of our consultants that we have tonight. Her name's Rihanna Merrill, and she's going to be presenting to you all the preliminary report. Thank you. Yes, like Lindy said, my name is Rihanna Merrill. I am an Community Assessment Coordinator with the Technical Assistance Collaborative at MSU. MSU is part of it. So I have a relatively short presentation just to kind of guide you through some of the initial findings and emerging themes of our community needs assessment that we wrapped up the data collection on a few weeks ago. The timing is a little out of my head right now, but recently. So yeah, I'm ready to get started if the presentation's ready. Okay. So we can go to the next slide then. Thank you. So to get started, I wanted to give a bit of background on the methodology that we used for the community assessment. We broke down the data collection into two parts, surveys and then the focus groups and interviews, which I'll combine together just for the ease of it. With the surveys, we ended up conducting 5 total surveys. The largest one was the community-wide survey. When we cleaned up all of that data, we had a grand total of 563 total respondents. That survey was broken down into 3 kind of separate directions that it could take you. If you indicated that you had lived experience with substance use disorder, you would be taken to specific questions for you. Additionally, if you had a loved one with lived experience, whether that's friend, family, or anyone close to you, that would be another different survey. And then general community was the last survey. And so out of those 563 total respondents, 74.8% answered that they had direct experience or lived experience with substance use disorder. 41.9% were people with lived experience, 32.9% had a loved one. So that is a really good turnout from that community, being able to hear exactly who we were trying to hear from with this survey. Outside of that, we also conducted 4 organizational surveys for emergency services, criminal justice, community-based organizations, and providers. Those had 49 total respondents. Those surveys we are using more of as like a complementary to any of the other data points that we find from the community-wide survey. So I'm mostly going to be focusing on the community-wide survey in our initial findings today. And then we can go to the next slide, please. We also conducted focus groups and interviews. These allow for us to get more of a qualitative data set and to hear directly from individuals. In those focus groups and interviews, we heard from 32 people with lived experience, 2 loved ones, 2 community-based organizations, 12 providers, 9 public safety and law enforcement officers, and the medical examiner's office. And I will touch on the qualitative data a little later in the presentation. So the next slide, please. Here I have the demographics of the community survey. That is the large one with 570-something responses. I've broken down here the race and ethnicity that we collected from that survey. I don't have much analysis to go on here, so I just wanted to give you a second to kind of look over who exactly we reached. We also went over the age and gender of the demographics of that survey. As you can see here, the age that we got was, was really a lot within the 25 to 44-year-old range, which I believe would be expected. All right, and then the next slide, please. So I also wanted to go over just a bit of the survey analysis. This isn't going to be anything too in-depth, but just kind of to give you an idea of what we're starting to find and make sure that you all believe we're on the right track. So we can go to the next slide, please. For all of the individuals that indicated that they had lived experience with substance use disorder, we asked them what programs that they were accessing within Kalamazoo County. So as we see here, the #1 most accessed program was medications for opioid use disorder or medication-assisted treatment, followed pretty closely by peer support specialists, and then naloxone or Narcan dispensers or distributors. All of these had a really high number, which is good. And it shows that the programs that are being utilized, it's pretty even amongst all of them. Next slide, please. Of those with lived experience, we also asked what barriers that they were encountering within Kalamazoo County. The #1 barrier that they reported was lack of accessible resources, lack of accessible substance use resources near them, followed pretty closely by affordability. One thing I would like to point out with this, and this is something that we would go more in depth in the final report, is that in our conversations and surveys with providers and community-based organizations, we did see that there were a lot of programs available. And so some of the possible issues with where that bridge isn't being met with people with lived experience could either be lack of knowledge or community awareness of some of those programs, affordability again, and a lot of those might tie into it, such as transportation or stigma or judgment of accessing those programs. Next slide, please. We also asked people with lived experience how easy it was to find help and resources, to access help and resources, and to get medical and mental health care. I bring up this one in particular. It's very neutral. Everyone is either within the somewhat difficult, somewhat easy, or neutral standpoint on this one. But if we go to the next slide. Here we can see that loved ones, when asked the same question about how to find help and resources for their loved ones, so family or friend, to be able to support them, they report having a much more difficult time finding, accessing, and getting mental and medical health care for their loved ones. So this is a pretty big discrepancy in how people with lived experience are able to interact with the system and how loved ones are able to interact with the system, that we would probably really want to dive into a little later on the final report. Next slide, please. Anyone that took that general community survey was asked questions about naloxone or Narcan. And so the next 3 slides, I have those data points pulled out because I think that they tell a really important story. The first question we asked was asking individuals to identify if they knew how to use naloxone or Narcan, if they didn't know what it was entirely, or if they knew what it was but weren't really sure how to use it. So as you can see here, the majority of all individuals know what it is and know how to use it, which is a really good sign for Kalamazoo County. And a very small population don't know what it is at all. So the education is out there, and most folks do know what it is and know how to use it. Next slide, please. So following up with that, we asked individuals if they carry naloxone on them, and later on we'll go into where they're accessing it. General community is not carrying it, which isn't necessarily unexpected, but it is something to point out. Whereas people with lived experience and loved ones, the majority of them are carrying naloxone on them. And then at the next slide, we dive a little bit into where individuals are getting naloxone from dispensers or from distributors. Here, most people reported receiving naloxone from the Kalamazoo County Health Department. Specifically, people with lived experience. People with lived experience also reported getting a lot from the Recovery Institute. Loved ones, the majority of them report getting it from pharmacies where you're able to pick it up, as well as secondary distributors and Hope Through Navigation. So secondary distributors just means that if someone orders a bulk supply and they just pass it out to their friends is what that would be listed under. And then the next slide. So that is the kind of short story of the quantitative analysis so far. What we're currently doing is taking all of the focus groups and interviews and coding them into qualitative data analysis, which is a lengthy process sometimes because we want to make sure that we're paying attention to every single word that someone told us. But from that, we'll be able to combine it with the quantitative data and put together a whole story. And so I guess I have one question for you guys before you ask us any questions, and that's just to make sure that is what we're showing you so far kind of what you're looking for with this story, and are there any maybe questions that you would want answered or dived into further?
Commissioners, I hate speaking first, but I will say this, I rely heavily on Commissioner Stubbs for this. This is her day job, so to speak. And all of us, each commissioner around this dais has talents, whether it be, road, law enforcement. It's impossible to be good at just about everything that county government does. But that being said, this is kind of a new thing for all counties throughout the state. It's a large source of money, and every different community or different county is trying to figure out, how do we get the best bang for our buck? How can we improve people's lives with these dollars and get people back on track? What is the most cost-effective way and best uses to do that? Is it 100% putting everything in law enforcement? I don't think so. Is it putting 100% in community-based resources? I don't think that's the answer either. But what is that sweet spot where we're helping people, we're still providing safety to our residents, safety, and whether I think our first expenditure was for a scanner for the jail. That's for safety within our jail. So following those principles, getting the most bang for our buck. I don't know the answers to that. I'm really going to trust and rely heavily on you, rely heavily on Commissioner Stubbs. But that's my answer. But are there any other commissioners that want to take a crack at this? Commissioner Gissler?
Thank you, Chair. I participated in one of your meetings, the one up at Mount Zion. And I know that getting people to come in and talk about things like that is not always easy. Could you give me an idea? We saw, 400 or 500 responded to the survey, and then a smaller number was on the second half of that slide. How many people showed up to, talk with you about it?
I believe the number was 32 individuals with lived experience showed up for focus groups and interviews. That number is going to be smaller than surveys because we're asking more of people. And so we don't want to ask too much of them. And some people are more comfortable answering a survey. It feels more anonymous. But we were able to talk to 32 people. I completed probably about 24 of those people that I talked to. And it was, I think, really great to talk to them. I think that we got really good information from them. And I think that as we go forward, one of our recommendations is going to be to continue completing something like this, and to continue talking to those individuals as well.
Will you bear with me for one more question? And I'd like to address this through you because I can only address the chair, right? But I want to know what Abby thinks about the idea of having Narcan available. For instance, do you have it in your job? Would you like it? Oh, sorry.
Thank you. For my job working in Texas Township, we do not carry Narcan because it does have a shelf life, and we are fortunate enough to not have to use it that often. The other thing too is that we have the resources to not have to be able to use Narcan. So, an opioid depresses the respiratory system, and as long as we keep somebody breathing, they won't go into cardiac arrest. So we have other options besides Narcan, but personally, outside of my job, I think it should be available freely to anyone. It shouldn't punish somebody and not have them have availability to stay alive. So that's my personal opinion.
I do not know. I know the price of bread and a gallon of milk. Vice Chair Ray.
Thank you, Chair. I have a few questions. Thank you for this information. I guess my first question is, are we done collecting data? Are we done talking to people? Because I feel like 567 people in a county of 270,000 is a little low, and I would like to hear from more people than just the surveys that we collected and the 32 people in the focus groups.
Yeah, of course. I think that this cycle, I would say, is completed, but it is definitely a recommendation to continue. That is not something that I'm able to say, here's the exact date of when you should do it next, but I think that the sooner the better is always good. It's nice to set something up. And it also becomes easier once you've done one to set up that infrastructure that's already there to continue doing it on whatever basis you decide to do it on.
Okay. And do we know how these specific focus groups are formed? Who decided when we would have them and where they would take place?
They were, interest was indicated in the initial survey. So if someone took the survey, they were redirected to another form to be asked if they were interested in participating in a focus group. The focus groups were compensated for their time. And the timing, it was mostly based on trying to have it a few different times for when different people would be available. We heavily relied on community organizations to host them for us so that we could sit in with them. And a lot of them did also, we had one or two that provided their own participants for it too.
Okay. And then the last question. Of the total respondents, 74.8% were folks directly impacted with lived experience or a loved one. And there was a separate section that talked about the organizations. So the other 25.2%, who were those folks?
Those were just the rest of the community, I would say. So individuals within the community that don't know someone and weren't directly impacted by it, they were asked more questions relating to stigma within the community and Narcan or naloxone.
So the survey was online and based on why you're taking the survey, it will take you to different questions? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Quick question on, I know this is very early in the process and counties are just getting the settlement checks now as far as, but I guess I'd be interested in, and there's probably no information now, but best practices, how other communities and municipalities are, expending their dollars, what type of programs are they using and what kind of expectations on the results are they planning on getting from said dollars. I mean, that's kind of, I mean, I hate to be the follower on this, but, you know, this is just such a new thing that, you know, a new lump sum of money and just a tremendous opportunity to try to, you know, rectify what has been the harm that's been done to our community through these pharmaceutical companies. So, you know, I'm always just looking for best practices, I guess.
Yeah, so I can take that question. So, as the commission has done, y'all have formed a task force and have posed about 11 questions to that task force that essentially kind of some of those questions ask to what are the best practices. So once we get the final report indicating what our community is saying are the needs that they see as the needs, that task force will be then looking at that report and looking at some of the best practices that are out there. We know that the state has recently put out their spending plan for their opioid settlement funding for 2024. I think looking at that and how the state also determines what categories they have and maybe what programs they're going to be funding, how will that impact maybe some of the decisions that you all are going to be making as well with funding and how maybe we can even leverage some things with some programs in our community. So that's kind of the very next step after getting this report and being able to look at the results of it. It's then now looking at you know, those best practices that are out there nationwide, but then of course what the state is also recommending with their funding stream and what do we want to consider here for Kalamazoo County.
Absolutely, especially if there's matching opportunities with the state as well. Commissioner Gibson.
Yes, I was kind of surprised that several of my rural townships are extremely interested in following this. Kevin, I think you just sent out something in the last week or two. I'd like to see something like that that sort of wraps its arms around what we know so far on a quarterly or some kind of regular basis, so that as people ask questions, I'll have better answers than I do now. Thanks.
Commissioner Wheeler.
Just to go back to your question, Commissioner Gissler, Narcan is about $45 over the counter. And I do recall my mother had gallbladder surgery, and after her gallbladder surgery, Narcan was not covered by her insurance, even though she was required, they gave her a very small amount of opioids, not covered by insurance.
Moving along. Next up, we've got Midling Brownfield Plan Amendment Number 4 presentation.
Hi, thanks for having me today, Honorable Chair, Vice Chair, and Commissioners. Again, my name is Macy Walters. I am with the Kalamazoo County Brownfield Redevelopment Authority. I'm the administrator who staffs that board. I would like to go ahead and just take the time to introduce some other representatives I have with me today who will be on hand to answer any questions that you might have. I want to remind you that, tonight at the 7 o'clock meeting, we're not asking you to take action. Today, we're just hoping that you enjoy our presentation and then ask any questions that you have. Any that you have after that, we can hopefully answer later. But I have Rob Bridigan here from Midlink, who's available behind me in the crowd. I have Philip Hahn and Gary Curtis from the Chupan Project. And then I have Kirk Perschbacher from Fishbeck, who's the consultant who put this amendment together. And then Dina, actually, if you don't mind, just going ahead and going to the presentation, if you can. I'll remind the committee here that you have the full amendment in your packets. There's also a memo from me that details some specifics. And then this presentation itself is actually piecemeal of a memo from Fishbeck as well. So we wanted to give you as much information as possible and as little time as we have to give it to you. So Dina, that is actually still the plan itself. If you're able to go to the presentation, there should be some slide files somewhere for you. Find it here. Well, she's got it going. I'll pull it up in case I need to connect. And I do have it pulled up if you would like me to direct connect to, but that's up to you, Dina. I see you're working on it. So I will, just briefly touch, this is the Fourth Amendment. This plan, we've been approached 3 other times. I will start with what the First Amendment was. Back when this Brownfield Authority was first started, we had one big brownfield plan, and they added an amendment as you would go, as you'd add more plans. So even though the Midlink plan itself has had one amendment, that specific one actually didn't have anything to do with that project. That was just the way things happened. This was actually a project called Brown Family Holdings at the time. It's the way the city of Kalamazoo's Brownfield Authority did it as well. So this was such a new authority back then. That's how they modeled it. But that is not the way that we do that now. So all of our brownfield plans are on their specific own individual plans at this point. So even though this is amendment number 4, the first one actually wasn't Midlink. It was something else called Brown Family Holdings. Dina, would you like me to just go ahead and direct connect in here for you? Can she say anything?
I'm gonna bring it up right now, Macy. Thank you.
Oh, okay, perfect. I just tried to stall if I needed to. So the other 2 amendments were another tool as well, just like this one that we're approaching you for today. Amending brownfield plans are a way to help facilitate further economic development and allow an increase in eligible activities per state statute that are allowed to be reimbursed to these developers. And by allowing amendments such as these, you actually help increase property value. And then once the brownfield plan is completed, it's a greater amount of money rolling back into the tax base. All right, I think I have successfully stalled long enough. That was important information. Okay, so the Midlink Business Park. Dina, if you don't mind, go ahead and head on to the next slide when you get a chance here. Okay, so I just want to briefly touch on the total park itself and the amendment, just a full overview here. The total park itself is roughly 340 acres. It was a former automotive manufacturing plant. This specific amendment is actually doing something that's unique. It would be requesting that the location would be designated as an economic opportunity zone. There are 3 different qualifying needs for each project for that, and this project does meet those needs. We'll get into what those qualifiers are later. This amendment would also allow 25 to 50 more full-time jobs in the area, would also increase about $36 million in private investment. The total plan would put over $6 million into our local brownfield revolving fund. And as a reminder, that is a fund that we use for projects countywide. And so that will help further facilitate economic development. Next slide, please, Dina. Okay, so this is just a site map of the area itself. This isn't just where the specific amendment is happening or the expansion, but this is the full project site itself. So you can see that it's a pretty good size. Go ahead and go to the next slide here. Thank you. It's a little bit of a better map. This shows the project zones. If you get into the amendment packet itself, you'll be able to see some more specifics, but that is just a nice overview for you to be able to see an aerial shot of how big this business park is and how it's able to expand and continue to promote development in our area. Next slide, please, Dina. Okay, so this is a slide that I'm not going to read everything off to you. There's a lot of words. So as a reminder, I cut and pasted things from other memos so that you guys would have as much information as possible. So for this specific slide, it goes over eligible activities that the plan already has and have already been approved. One of the new things is site demolition. This economic opportunity zone would allow infrastructure prep and other eligible activities through state taxes that were not otherwise eligible. And so this is a unique thing. And as a reminder, when we can capture more state taxes, it does help the local school systems as well, and it rolls more money into our tax base. Next slide, please. Okay, again, a lot on the page, but what I want to highlight is everything that says new, anything with the parentheses new around it, because these are the things that would be coming of this amendment. Again, this is already a plan that's in place, so we're just adding a couple new things to it to help with some of these eligible expenses. Infrastructure improvements, we already touched on that. Because this would be in the economic opportunity zone, those improvements would be eligible. These were improvements that didn't need to happen before, but now due to the redevelopment of the site, it is something that is necessary. Demolition, as well as site preparation, are all new activities that would become eligible through state taxes as well. Go ahead and do the next slide here, Dina. Okay. I promised we would get to what the economic opportunity zone is. This is kind of a definition for what the park would be. This is not something that requires an additional resolution or any other type of additional approvals from the state. It just needs to meet 3 different qualifiers. It needs to be big enough, and this site is big enough. It's approximately 340 acres. It needs to have some former machinery or automotive on it. This one was a former GM plant, so it does fit in with that. And it is contiguous to a qualifying city, which would be the city of Kalamazoo. That is a qualifying city. Comstock Charter Township is the township that this will be in. They have already approved a resolution for this plan as well. And so we do have local support. Go ahead and do the next slide, please, Dina. Okay. Yeah, I put so much on here, it's getting smaller. So I would like you guys to take a look at this stuff in some private time and make sure you have any questions for me at the end on any of these figures. Again, this is already a plan that's in place, but there are a lot of numbers that we could talk about. I don't want to get into the weeds of it today because you guys have the full amendment in front of you. So there's overall plan metrics on here. It is going off of the original taxable value. This plan did start in 2008, and they started beginning capture in 2011. So it is estimated that this plan could go the full 25 years to reimburse the developer. That's what this amendment would help do. Right now, it's projected to wrap up at about 23 years to reimburse the developer. It would just take them to the statutorily allowed 25 years. Excuse me, need a little water here. But in any case, this one would be a good one to be able to, just consider the amount of added eligible activities. If we can increase these eligible activities, that means we can capture more into our LBRF, which means we can do more good around the community. So I'd like you to look at that. And if you have any specific questions about the numbers, please reach out because we do have all of those answers. But you might get 7 million, like your joke at the last one. There's always answers for that. Dina, can you go ahead and move on to the next slide, please? We got through this a little bit faster than I had hoped. A little bit of a timeline here. So, we already talked to the Brownfield Board about this. They recommended this to the Township Board. The Township Board passed a resolution in October. Now speaking to you today, not asking you to take any action, but just consider that this is a financing tool. It is up to you on whether or not you decide to approve this. But this would be a great use of Public Act, our Brownfield Act. And so this could be a great funding source for additional people who would like to be part of the Midlink Business Park. This is something that helps make the site a little bit more marketable. It allows for Schupan to come in and have some eligible activities that they wouldn't already have, and just helps facilitate this economic growth in our county. So today we're at November 8th, just asking you to consider the amendment, take a look at all of the details. We have some time before you need to decide. Please let me know if you have any questions at all. And we're hoping that tonight at your 7 o'clock meeting, you will authorize sending notice to the taxing jurisdictions, as well as setting a public hearing for November 21st. I would need to send out notice to the taxing jurisdictions by tomorrow with our holiday and with time coming up. I am available for questions at any time. I also have our consultants here. I'd like to open up the floor for any specific questions you may have.
Are there any questions from commissioners? Just a statement, what you've been able to do with the Brownfield over the last, you and your predecessor and over the years, it's truly remarkable. As I've said this before, it is going to be one of the biggest engines of economic development in this county. As you spoke briefly about the 7 million going into the revolving fund. Just continue with all these different projects as that collects more and more. It's really going to be a force that will be the biggest player in economic development in the county. Will be right here. The question I had is you're basing this on the original taxable value, you're not re-upping, but you still get the 22 to 25 years from the date of the amendment, but it's still based on the original taxable value?
So the 23-year timeline, 22, 25, that is the total length of the plan. So that starts whenever the plan was originally approved. So back in 2008, it would be the taxable value for whatever the property was assessed at then. So what we would capture now, of course, the property value has gone up a lot. It's that increment. So the increment only continues to get bigger because we're still basing it off of that original taxable value in 2008.
But since you based it off the original taxable value in 2008, wouldn't you need to start the 23-year plan, or is it from the original plan was 23 years, starting in 2008, so it would end in 2032?
It's
33?
estimated that maybe 2035 is when the plan would officially be done, that there would
Okay.
no longer be capture into the LBRF or anything to the developers. We're only statutorily allowed to have plans go a full 25 years, so you can't really pause. So this amendment is still encompassing only the final few years of this plan.
Gotcha.
So it's not, yeah, so does that answer your question?
Yes, it
Okay,
does.
good.
Okay. And then if you do, you can still go to the 25 years and get those last 2 years to, after the developer has been reimbursed, right? And put it back in the revolving, or no?
It is estimated right now that of the current TIF tables that are modeled in the amendment, it could take, depending on if the developers were to get an industrial facilities tax, depends on what, if they have any additional abatements. But I would take a look at those TIF schedules themselves, because it is estimated that the developer would be paid back between 23 to 25 years total. It depends on if they get that IFT. It's up to them. It is their own statutorily allowed decision to do. But essentially, that is how long this plan has. It's not an additional 23 years. It's just, originally when this was modeled, they thought, oh, we'll make enough money back. Plan might, could possibly end early. But now it's looking like, okay, we're going to try to go the full 25 years that we're allowed. And then if we fully reimburse the developers, then that would just end and we would begin capture into the LBRF.
Okay. That was.
And then it would be early end, so it's really, it could go maximum 30 years total, but that last 5 years is all capture into the LBRF. No developer reimbursements.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you very much. Commissioner Gissel.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I don't want to prolong your presentation, but I would love to have this opportunity to get an update on how many businesses operate out of Midlink now. I've only had a chance to visit a couple of them, and I'm sure there are new ones since I was able to do that. Is this something you would want to do, or do you want to have Rittigan come up and talk?
Yeah, we'll see. Rob, do you feel prepared to answer? Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Gissler. We have, I think it's 23 or 25 businesses operating. That includes approximately 18 in the buildings that we own, and then also includes those businesses within the business park, including the hotels, General Mills, Park Orchids, Seneca Medical, excuse me, it's Concordance Medical now, and I'm missing one, Aaron Ziegler's operation, Ziegler Motorsports.
Starting with basically an empty GM building, that's kind of amazing. How many employees? Do you have your finger on that? How many people work there daily?
Yeah, it's between 750 and 1,000. I think we use 750 in our documentation.
Thank you, Chair.
And those are full-time employee jobs, not counting the vendors and contractors that are hired and come in to do work at the property every day.
Thank you. I didn't want to get too much into the weeds and the numbers. Like I said, brownfields are a little bit complicated. Please take all of the time you need to take a look at everything, and we're hoping that you can pass a resolution adopting the plan on the 21st.
Very much. I remember in 2003, as a brand new commissioner, but they had just failed the first jail millage, and they went through Midlink, all like 17 commissioners, and we were looking at Midlink to possibly put the jail in there. I'm glad we never went that route, but now it's doing really well for itself. Okay, next up, Committee of the Whole. Public housing presentation.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Taylor, Vice Chair Ray, County Commissioners, and County Administration. I'm Patrice Griffin. I'm the Chair of the Kalamazoo County Public Housing Commission, here along with Vice Chair Hooker to present the work plan for 2024. I know that is included in your packet, and so this work plan starts January 1st, 2024, and it goes through December 31st, 2024. And just a bit of background. This plan is a carryover from 2023. The 2015 millage, the Homes for All,
to be responsive to community need. The 5th year of that program was stopped with the service provider. And so the county commission, or excuse me, the Public Housing Commission has been working to support families. And so the standards for the eligibility are going to be the same with respects to who is able to receive assistance. Families with at least one child that are enrolled in school K through 12, families who are homeless, using the McKinney-Vento definition, which is much more expansive than the HUD definition of homelessness. Kalamazoo County School is defined as a public school, charter school, or private school, and the income requirements are households that are at or below 60% of the area median income for Kalamazoo and Portage. So I am going to step aside and allow for Vice President Hooker to go over the details.
Thank you, President Griffin. Good afternoon, good evening, Vice Chair, Chair, Commissioners. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to just give you a high-level overview of our work plan and our plans going forward. I just want to stress that this is a draft. We will need to go ahead and vote on this at our next meeting, and then we will resubmit for your approval at your next full county board meeting. So what we have in front of us in your packet is, as President Griffin explained, is the work plan that basically has been amended and revised based on community needs, which is how we are here today. The reason why we have this funding at this point is because we found that with our provider that we were using, which at that time was Housing Resources Incorporated, it became very difficult for us to actually continue with the work plan services as noted, because there was no affordable housing available. And so there was still remaining funds available. So the remaining funds is how we are the remaining funds that we are using. We're not accessing any other funds besides the ones that are basically the leftover funds from the original 2015 millage. And what we're proposing that's different this time is to actually create permanent affordable housing, as opposed to trying to master lease houses or trying to do anything besides create more affordable housing by either doing a new project development, or actually master leasing some type of a unit that's already available and creating more permanent affordable housing, rather than looking in community for something that's not available. That's the big difference in this work plan, is that we're proposing to actually create that affordable housing, as opposed to master leasing or looking to find something in community that's not actually available. As we know, we have a shortfall in units that are actually available to us. The other thing is that we wanted to extend a program that we were already funding. It was approved for 1 year, which is the McKinney-Vento partnership with ISK, which actually has supportive services in various Kalamazoo County schools. And that program, if we would not continue to fund it, would actually terminate after only 1 year of providing that program. And so we felt that actually continuing to support that program with another $200,000 would allow more likelihood of success for the families that they are already working with. I believe that's kind of a very high level overview. I did want to touch on the fact that we purchased a condominium. We're just gonna say that we learned a lot from that, and leave it at that. The biggest takeaway from this is that we're actually going to have more money in the budget when we sell it, because we purchased it at a lower rate, and so we will actually turn over a profit. And so that is the biggest successful takeaway that we're going to go with on that one. And without any other belaboring the fact, I think that's pretty much the high level changes that we kind of made with this specific work plan. I'm happy to answer any questions if you would allow me to, Chair.
Yes, any questions from commissioners? I have one. You mentioned that you're moving away from the master leasing process that been before and into maybe building new, whether it be houses or apartment complexes. Is the goal of this to try to build towards home ownership, as opposed to sort of a short-term leasing? I mean, it said in facts, I mean, you look in a lot of the statistics, like building home ownership is the easiest way to build wealth. Is that sort of going to be more of the focus moving forward?
So building intergenerational wealth is always the focus. However, in this particular case, we realize that folks they have to be in a position to be ready for home ownership. And so our ideal is to actually support and provide full wraparound services for folks that are in affordable housing to really get them in a position to be home ownership ready and bankable. And so basically that would mean that we'd be really intentional about making sure that people are clearing up their credit, are able to, pay off old bills, are making sure that they're able to actually be in a position so that they would be able to actually be successful in home ownership. We found not only in my personal work with the organization that I work for as my real job, that we really have to be more intentional about providing those wraparound services to folks and making sure that we're walking alongside of them through that whole process, as opposed to just expecting that, we can put them in a house and they're going to be ready to go. We found that out in various instances this past year on some of the ways that we tried to do things, and really that's a crucial step that we cannot undermine or not overstate, is that we really have to make sure that we're providing those wraparound services to people so that they are more likely to be successful once they go from that next stage, and being really intentional about making sure that we're doing that.
Absolutely, that makes sense. That set people up for success.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Are there any other commissioner questions? Well, thank you very much for the presentation. Thank you for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having us.
Next up, reviews of accounts payable and payable disbursements. Ryan.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, Commissioners. An accounts payable claims list totaling $15,898,102.05 is presented for review. Of this total, the Board of Commissioners is asked to approve claims totaling $15,651,522.42. Payroll disbursements totaling $3,853,472.64 are presented for the October 16th special payroll, October 27th general payroll, October 30th special payroll, and October 31st elected payrolls.
Questions from commissioners? We have 3 weeks this time, so a bit higher. Well, thank you very much. Okay, next on any other items, we have a proclamation declaring November as Family Court Awareness Month. There's no real time delay on this, so this is just the first reading, and we'll do the second reading to follow normal operating procedures. Next, we have Office of Community Corrections Equipment Fund Pilot Project. Ken.
Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, and members. You've got a memo from me, and I don't want to sit here and take up your time and regurgitate it, so.
Questions from commissioners? We did a pilot project that I guess I've got a question. What has been I know at first there was kind of a wait list, correct?
There was.
Yeah, but now it's smoothed itself out a little bit.
We've addressed that. We are now processing, or we're processing people through until the funding ran out. As I said at the end of the memo, we worked with Michigan Works to get some supplemental funding in there, so that's kind of like our bridge right now. Wait list, we addressed it. Everybody was getting out pretty much on time. In fact, the word got out that it was a revolving doors, so we had to remind certain institutions that it's not just free money, there were pre-qualifiers to obtain that, so we settled things down. We've served 47 unique individuals, 39 of them, I believe, had recurring funding for a number of months. We've got a lot of people out of jail, and we're freeing up all those jail bed days by just keeping them out in the community, and they're helping to address their own issues, their family issues, showing the courts that they can succeed without going to jail as a sentence or going to prison as a sentence. I listed a couple of examples of one man and one woman in there who have, I think, been the highlight of what this is supposed to be doing. Here to ask for a little bit more money for the rest of 23 and kind of take your pulse on whether or not you want to go forward into 24 with this.
What is your anticipated 2024? I didn't see it in here, and I read this.
Correct. It's not in there. Can't see it.
Do you have an anticipated 2024 dollar amount that you think would need, assuming the 15,000 would get you through December 31st?
40. So 31 plus 15 is roughly 45, 46.4. But I think with some of the assistance from Michigan Works that will continue into at least June 30th, 2023, that's their current funding stream. They have reapplied for their fiscal year, July 1, 24 to 25. Sounds like it'll come through. I think with their help, with a little bit of the tightening up of our rules on how we're expending the money, I think the 40 will do.
Well, I'll just throw out my kind of opinion on this. Anytime we can get tax-paying members of society outside of the jail and supervise them in a way that's responsible and still safe to the community, and do it at a lower dollar amount than it costs to actually incarcerate said individual, I believe it's a no-brainer to do it. It's not only the moral thing to do, it's also the fiscally responsible thing to do. That's my personal opinion. Also, that being said, when we're doing supervised or mandatory supervising of defendants that are found not guilty, I've always said this, there is a huge potential liability issue for courts, for judges, for counties, when we impose these types of restrictions and financial hardship on individuals. One of the examples you said is somebody was found not guilty that was imposed. I mean, I don't know. It seems to me something that'll probably have to be taken up, at a Supreme or state Supreme Court or something. But it just seems to be a huge liability for counties. But anytime we can do it. So I'm in favor of it, at the very least, the $15,000. I think we can do it from contingency. We are going to have a substantial amount, but we'll have a decent amount of carryover this year. I'm not going to throw out a number, but we'll have a number of carryover this year. Putting that out there for $15,000 is not going to break the bank to fund it for the rest of this year. That's my personal opinion. And then the 2024 discussion, it was not part of our original 2024 budget, so it would have to be an amendment. We'd have to identify revenue source and whatnot. But I think that would be a discussion for a later date. But that's my opinion, but I'd like to see where board feels on that. Commissioner Gissler.
Thank you, Chair. I feel very similar to you in that I think more about the people that are incarcerated awaiting trial, and meantime they aren't able to go to their job. They probably miss some mortgage payments. You basically pull them out of society because they can't go bail. I'm not for bailless release for all potential criminals, but we, I think, have a lot of people, and I'm sorry that there's an undersheriff over there. Would you comment about the number of people that awaiting trial? It ruins their life, or at least it does to a certain extent, and I think that's an abomination. And I also want to ask Ken a question.
Yes, sir.
Because the road commission took so long to get Lake Street done, I wound up driving past KPEP more often than usual. Did I see a for sale sign there, or is that on the next lot?
No, you did. It's been up about 2, maybe 3 months.
Where are you going?
Us?
Chicago?
No.
Oh, okay.
It's KPAP.
I was gonna say, you're getting out of the state, huh?
No. We are here. We are firmly planted on Healy Street. Both feet in concrete.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Vice Chair Ray.
Thank you. Just a quick question. I heard you mention that there are some pre-qualifiers. What are the qualifications for individuals to qualify for the funding?
The use of the money, the problem that we identified is that some of the defendants would cut the tether and take off. And so we tightened that up, and looking at it, we found that people who have been convicted either by a plea or by trial, and they're facing prison, sometimes the court will let them out for those last 6 weeks on a tether. Those are the ones who are likely going to cut it and run because they know they're going to prison. So for them, we require a deposit equal to the amount of the equipment. That's kind of like the tightening up the pre-qualifications. Otherwise, they're just running, and we're left without this $2,000 worth of equipment that we're responsible for.
How much is the deposit?
The GPS unit's about $2,100.
Does that defeat the purpose if I can't afford to pay to have the tether or the bill? I have $2,100.
That's what the unit itself costs. This GPS tether strapped to the ankle costs $2,100.
Right.
So if they cut it and they throw it in Atwater Pond, it's gone.
Right. So you charge them the deposit before you put it on?
Yeah.
Right. So does that?
But for generally speaking, there's nothing. We get a court order that says, release this defendant on GPS, $500 bond. They post a $500 bond. They're coming out because that's what this funding is supposed to do, provide for the cost of the release.
Right. So, okay. If I have $2,100 to pay a deposit for a tether, wouldn't it make sense that I will be able to afford to have the tether? To me, it sounds like it defeats the purpose of providing the funding to that individual. If they have the money.
That's a call that, viewing myself as a responsible steward of the county funds, I determined that, yes, we're going to cover generally everybody. But if they have a demonstrated likelihood of throwing that piece of equipment away and costing the county $2,500, they need to have some skin in the game, which is the amount equal to the cost of the equipment. We're still paying for them for the monthly monitoring fees. We're still paying for them to get out. But if they have an increased risk of flight, then that's where I decided to do that.
Okay.
Now, if the board decides we're paying for that $2,500 every time they cut it and throw it in the river or the dumpster. We found 2 in the dumpster, 1 stuck up under a cement truck wheel well. 1 still is in the bottom of the pond downtown. So we do our best to find them, but if they put it in the dumpster and it's gone and the battery runs out, we'll never find it. That's $2,500 I'm responsible for. So what I'm doing is trying to do what the spirit is, but if you're going to, that's a judgment call. So that's on me, and if you all want me to say it doesn't matter, let them all go.
Oh, no, I'm just trying to find out what the qualifiers are.
Yeah, that's it.
That to me didn't make sense. But, so that's the only, I heard you say like people were just like it was a free-for-all, and you're like, no, there's pre-qualifiers. So that's the only stipulation, you just do a risk assessment. Otherwise, anybody can utilize the
Anybody who has been ordered out, and the only thing that's holding them in jail is I can't pay for it, they're out.
Okay, thank you.
And that follow-up to Commissioner Vice Chair Ray's question, what percentage do you think of the people that are utilizing this service are required to put down a high fright list, are required to put down a deposit?
10%.
Okay, that's Commissioner Morales.
Thank you, Chair. That was one of my questions. The second one is the flight risk based on what the judgment from the prosecutor and the judge provides for you to put
No.
that stipulation on there?
No, the flight risk is what we determine based on our data internally. Like we look at all these people, look, who is it that is cutting the tether off and running? What are their characteristics? So we look at those and basically profile them, compile data. And we come down to those who have a lot of failure to appear in court before, those who are likely to go to prison for a long time, and I forget what the third one was. Those who have done it before. So those three people are a high risk for taking the equipment off and throwing it in the dumpster, throwing it in the side of the road, throwing it in the river, whatever, taking off.
You get the 2,100 back if you successfully.
So if they do that, it's a new felony charge. So we ask the prosecutor to issue a new felony charge on that. And then when they are sentenced on their original charge for which they cut the equipment off and threw it away, we ask the court to order restitution.
No, it's saying if they pay the $2,100 deposit, they come back and they show up for their court sentence, and they get their 2,100 back, correct? Yep, okay.
It's a deposit. You comply, you keep bringing the equipment back, here's your money back.
I think that 10% number, really, that makes sense. I think being a good fiduciary of the responsibility, as long as, I think what, other commissioners were, I hate to put words in people's mouths, but I think if this was 100% or 80%, or we were requiring everybody to pay that, deposit, it wouldn't make any sense for the program, but having the 10% to safeguard, to make the program last longer, I think it makes sense. Do commissioners have any problem with the $15,000 coming from, and we'll let administration find whether it's contingency or what do you think, Kevin, or off the top here? Maybe you should ask Ryan or, okay. I think 15,000 is appropriate to finish out for the rest of the year. Everybody good with that? Vice Chair Ray?
I just have one last question. I guess I want to hear from administration on their recommendation about the 15,000. I remember when we were going through the budget, I asked specifically if this program needed additional funding, and the answer was not at this time. So what is your recommendation?
Thank you for the question, Vice Chair Ray. Yeah, at the time we were preparing the budget, we didn't have enough information to make that recommendation. Sounds like, I think in terms of, continuing the program into 2024, we need to actually sit down with the sheriff's office to understand potential cost savings that it does, or that it could have on the jail, to understand that operation. Really, I think it's a metaphorical cost savings than an actual cost savings. So we need to actually sit down with those stakeholders to ensure that anything's captured that can help us in our decision or recommendation to move forward with the program in 2024. And I think that's just kind of where we are right now. We need to kind of sit down with Office of Community Corrections, Sheriff's Office, and Finance to review this in greater detail. In the interim, we can put on the 21st agenda board a budget adjustment for the 15,000 to keep it flowing for 2023.
No, just to add, it certainly would make it a lot easier for board decision if there were creative solutions with cost sharing with, say, Michigan Works that were already in place, or other sorts of matching funds, or some sort of creative outside source of funding. That would make it a lot easier on us just for 2024 moving forward. Okay, next. Next up, wage competition update. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate it. As you recall, during the budget, there were several strategic line items identified when it came to wages, retention bonuses, and search firms and things of that nature, to try and arm the county and HR to address some of the issues that we're facing. But to dial down a little bit deeper where we are today with two key positions in the county, in particular prosecuting attorneys and nurses, what we're seeing is within the classification and wage structure that we have, those positions within the same title are not competitive. So what we are proposing, and you'll be seeing a policy recommendation for the next board meeting at the CAL and at the board meeting, is the creation of what we're calling an X wage. And so that is actually a position in between steps where it highlights the unique elements of a particular job. It's nothing different than a premium pay that would be found in union contracts. If you're using a jackhammer, that you're paid at this rate, that rate. But this would allow for similar classifications, same title, same experience, same position across, but because of where it's placed in the job that the person is performing, that they get this elevated pay. What this will do is maintain the integrity of the Siegel implementation. It will identify some strict criteria of what positions are eligible and what conditions make a position eligible for this. What we expect in the coming years, yes, people will look at and say, jobs, this is not competitive, and we have to do a comparison. But what you'll see is within one title, the job may be in 3 different departments, but what that person has to do is vastly different. And so this actually acknowledges some of those differences. So for instance, a nurse 1 in public health and a nurse 1 in the jail, very, very different, right? So this actually establishes a pay that maintains the integrity of the Siegel. So we just wanted to flag that and bring it to your attention for a policy review at next week.
I've got a quick question, and I kind of asked you, Kevin, and beforehand, just do you know how many positions were actually reviewed by Siegel? Not likewise positions, but how many actual positions?
Yes, 96.
96 positions were reviewed. And those, so those 96 encompass what percentage of our county workforce?
Yeah, the positions are different than the, so 309 positions were reviewed, I'm sorry, 309.
96 positions, but 309 people or employees, correct?
I'm actually chatting with the HR director. I just want to make sure we're not using language that says people versus positions. So these are titles and positions.
I know some departments had 1 or 2 people in their department got reviewed. Some departments got the majority of people in their department reviewed. And when Siegel went through, they used a lot of likeness. For instance, a frontline staff person in the treasurer's office would be the same as a frontline staff person in health and community services, or something to that effect. There were a lot of assumptions that were made between positions with Siegel,
So
if I'm correct.
And just for clarity, 309 positions were reviewed by the Siegel evaluator, the positions, not people.
So 309 positions, what percentage of the workforce does that encompass? Because I know there's a lot of departments that didn't have a single position in their people that encompassed, like the clerk's office, for instance, 1 position out of 15 people were reviewed. I'm assuming that there were other offices like that.
So the 90 job titles are due to consolidation of job titles and not positions. Only KCSO was not included.
That's my the crux of it, the consolidation of the job titles. I think that Siegel could have done a better job with the consolidation of the job titles. I think a lot of the time they were just lumping things together. And I know this came on before Administrator Catlin was here, and this was kind of pushed before, but I've been disappointed with how Siegel came out. I think the review that we've done, and we're with it for the next 4 to 5 years, kind of like other systems that we have at the county. But I guess I would like, I mean, I know that we need to take a good look at the prosecutor's office. They are underpaid compared to other counties. There's no doubt about that. We've been asking a lot of departments to do more with less, but it's not just the prosecutor's office. It's a lot of different offices within the county and a lot of different departments. I like your idea of the X rate. Carol, I think that's a great idea, and I think we should move forward with that. I just think we should also be cognizant of there are lots of different departments that have kind of, over the past decade and a half, have suffered from the disinvestment of, you know, the board in the last decade and a half, and I was guilty of that as well. But you know, investing more into our positions, I think, is in our employees was a focus during our budget, excuse me, during our budget time. If we want to do prosecutor's office and nurses first, I'm cool with that. But I do want to make it completely aware to this board that there's a lot of different departments that this is needed for. Commissioner Morales.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Terrell, for that presentation. Everybody on this board know how I feel about studies, and that really when we hire these consultants is to save the entity money and not really in respect for the employee. So moving forward, I would not like to use a consulting agency when we're looking at salaries. And this is just across the board with my experience here and my personal experience through other jobs that I've had, and that we do look at other counties. You know, prices are going up and wages are not. And so I don't want to continue to pinch I don't want to see any employee pinch, but definitely while I'm sitting on this board, I don't want our employees to continue to be pinched, especially when we're looking at folks who are saving lives like nurses. We know better. We know that they should be fairly compensated and that it should be a competitive rate to support not only what's going on in our jails, but what's in our county as a whole. I mean, a nurse making under $30 is like ridiculous. And I can't remember what we're starting out as, or even people who, you know, want to service the county that are leaving different government jobs to come here with pay cuts because they love what they do and have master's degrees and are not being compensated. And to Chair's point, is just not the prosecutor's office or nursing. We got the juvenile home and other entities that we really need to be looking at compensating those folks, especially when they have the credentials that meets the needs of how we should be serving our county. Thank you.
And I just wanted to say, Terrell, you have no idea how happy I am that you and Kevin are tackling this. This is a problem that is not of your making. And I have complete confidence that you too. And I don't mean to come off as accusational and like, I don't like Siegel, but I just want to let you guys know that this is, you know, this is kind of where I'm at, and I don't want to be like taking it as accusational or anything else, but I really appreciate the work that you've done and the kind of the ideas and outside of the box thinking that you've addressed this with.
Well, Chair, I just do want to point out that, you know, this is a full team effort with the HR department. The concept of, you know, the X class, as we're talking about it, is part of the industry. It's just being, in this instance, applied in a different way, which is, you know, towards these classes. Again, unions use this often, so we're looking at creating a framework to address these types of issues when it comes up. And then, of course, by policy, the board already does have market-based position, you know, assessments to allow for that kind of conversation. You know, all we are really striving to do is to create a framework to address these issues. The Siegel was done as a point in time. It was accurate at that particular time. And I do also want to point out that we did do comparisons with 8 different counties. So it is not industry-wide, it's within the government space. Are we competitive within the government space? What we're finding, particularly with the APAs, is that it's almost an arms race when it comes to wages. And it's one that people just really can't win. So we have to look at other factors, and that's what I think of about the foresight and the support that this board has done, is really look at all of the elements that create connections with jobs, everything from the innovative, you know, priorities supporting employees that this board has focused on us to do, But we also recognize that we do have to compete with wages and create those elements within our own structure. So I think that we are focusing on the framework to allow for that and allow for the space for that, for those departments to really say, look, this particular job is not competitive and there's a path forward for that. The Siegel is a base. It's not it's just a point in time. And again, the hard work of the folks in HR got us to a place where we corrected some severe inequities within our wage structure. And now this is a foundation for us to move forward. But make no mistake, we do have to move forward, and it has to be done in a transparent and predictable way. And this policy is just an example of those adjustments that allow us to do that in that manner.
Any comments from commissioners? Well, I appreciate you. I think as long as when we're creating that policy, just keep in mind the inclusivity and equity of all departments when we're doing so. But cool. Thank you very much. I don't think we have a closed session tonight, correct, Angelina? Oh, we are adjourned.
it too.
I have it on a mute, that's probably why. Done that.
So it's only one of them too.
Mm-hmm.
You want to unmute it and then we try? I got my phone. Just text. Not yet. Oh, I think that's better. Is that better for you guys? Sweet. Hey, I'm Terrell Cole here, saying hi to you guys. Hello? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I'm standing normal distance away, and now I'm close. Now I'm very close. I'm uncomfortably close, but I'm close. Standing straight up and away, standing straight up and away, close again.
All right, I'm going to call the Kalamazoo County Board of Commissioners regular board November 8th, 2023 to order. First on the agenda, invocation reflection, Commissioner Gissler.
Thank you, Chair. Please stand and join me in prayer. Lord, please grant us the wisdom to govern amid the conflicting interests and issues of our times. Also grant us a sense of the welfare and true needs of our citizens, and grant us a keen thirst for justice and rightness. Grant us confidence in what is good and fitting, and the ability to work together in harmony even when there is honest disagreement. Finally, grant us the personal peace to do the job that needs to be done. Amen.
Clerk Cox, will you please take roll?
Commissioner DeLu,
Here.
Commissioner Gissler,
Here.
Vice Chair Pro Tem Hepler is absent. Commissioner Mazer. Here. Commissioner Morales.
Present.
Vice Chair Ray. Commissioner Stubbs is absent. Chair Taylor
Here.
and Commissioner Wheeler.
Here.
7 present.
Right, 7 present, and I did receive communication from Vice Chair Pro Tem Hepler and Commissioner Stubbs. They will not be in attendance tonight. Proclamations. Who wants to go through proclamations? Commissioner Gissler, do you want to take us through those? I'll go to Commissioner Wheeler. She's got her hand up.
All right, this first proclamation is honoring Annette Powell. Whereas Annette Powell has served the citizens of Kalamazoo County for 25 years as of October 19th, 2023. Whereas Annette Powell has faithfully served as a certified hearing and vision technician, and whereas the County of Kalamazoo wishes to acknowledge and honor employees who have longevity under the umbrella of county government, since it is through longevity that expertise in the employee's particular field is achieved. Now therefore be it resolved that the Kalamazoo County Board of Commissioners does hereby acknowledge with gratitude the many years of dedication and service Annette Powell has imparted to the citizens of the county, and offers its best wishes for many more years of mutual association.
There is a motion and support. Clerk Cox, will you please take roll?
Commissioner DeLu,
Yes.
Commissioner Gissler.
Yes.
Commissioner Mazer.
Yes.
Commissioner Morales.
Yes.
Vice Chair Ray.
Yes.
Chair Taylor.
Yes.
Commissioner Wheeler.
Yes.
7 yes.
Thank you. Commissioner DeLu, do you want to take us into Donna Johnson?
Sure. Whereas Donna Johnson has served the citizens of Kalamazoo County for 25 years as of October 26, 2023. And whereas Donna Johnson has faithfully served as a deputy, and whereas the County of Kalamazoo wishes to acknowledge and honor employees who have longevity under the umbrella of county government, since it is through longevity that expertise in the employee's particular field is achieved. Now, therefore, it be resolved that the Kalamazoo County Board of Commissioners does hereby acknowledge with gratitude the many years of dedication and service Donna Johnson has imparted to the citizens of the county, and offers its best wishes for many years of mutual association.
Motion and support. Clerk Cox, will you please take roll?
Commissioner Gissler.
Yes.
Commissioner Mazer.
Yes.
Commissioner Morales. Vice Chair Ray.
Yes.
Chair Taylor.
Yes.
Commissioner Wheeler.
Yes.
Commissioner DeLu.
Yes.
7 yes.
All right, communications. Commissioner Morales, do you want to do the communications? Try to put you on the spot. Is there anybody else that's got it right in front? Commissioner DeLuze, you got it? Okay. No, I'll give it to you. You got it.
My mic today. Thank you. Communications, item number 5, letter C,
is a Lenawee County resolution supporting local control of land use. D, Montcalm County resolution opposing any legislation preempting local control for solar and wind developments. Item E, a letter from the city of Parchment requesting the Board of Commissioners to consider amending section 2.2 of the Central County Transportation Authority's Articles of Incorporation to replace the appointment of an at-large urban representative with a director recommended by the city of Parchment. Item F, Eaton County resolution opposing any legislation preempting local control of solar and wind developments. G, Wexford County resolution opposing any legislation preempting local control for solar and wind developments. H, notice of hearing for the electric customers of Indian Michigan Power Company case number U-21427. I, an email from Charles Hanna concerning the pods for the homeless.
Chair knows of no other communications. Okay, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the draft minute of the October 7th Committee of the Whole and the reconvened statutory annual meeting minutes.
So moved, Morales.
Okay, it's moved by Commissioner Morales, supported by Commissioner Wheeler. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, motion passes. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented. It's moved. Support. All those signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next is public comment. This is an opportunity for citizens to address the Board of Commissioners. Please give us your name, address, and you have up to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Ray and commissioners, I'm here tonight wearing a different hat than I wore earlier today. I'm here as mayor for the city of Parchment and the appointed at-large urban representative of the Central County Transportation Authority. I'm here to speak to my letter that was in your communications packet referenced as 5E on the agenda. I'm not here to upset the apple cart. The Central County Transportation Authority is a highly functional board, but there is one oversight in the governing documents, and that is that all jurisdictions within the boundaries of the authority are not guaranteed representation on the board. Parchment is an integral part of the public transportation system and falls into that category. Moreover, there could be jurisdictions that have multiple representation on the board, while others do not. So while my letter addresses the city of Parchment specifically, what I'm really asking for is a revision to the articles that would ensure that all jurisdictions have representation on the Central County Transportation Authority in the future going forward. So I'm asking that, respectfully asking that you place this item on your agenda for action at a future meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizens wishing to address the board?
Greetings, commissioners. I'm Bill Farmer, live at 9200 South 36th Street in Scotts and Pavilion Township. I was remiss in my attendance at the last meeting to thank you all for voting for your budget, which had an appropriation in it to satisfy medical debt within Kalamazoo County to all of our neighbors. Commissioner Ray, Chair Taylor, in absence, Commissioner Strebs taking the lead on that and explaining the situation is very much appreciated. Having the entire commission vote for that gives hope that we can build a nonpartisan movement to satisfy medical debt within the state of Michigan. There are other counties doing this. We hope the momentum that we can build will induce the state to appropriate money in medical debt relief that could affect over 600,000 Michigan residents. That's the depth of the problem. And I'm here to indicate to you that the context of medical debt lies squarely in the crisis of our national medical system that needs to be addressed. And being a representative of Michigan for Single Payer Healthcare, I implore you to read over, become familiar with the Medicare for All Act, which provides a single payer, universal healthcare system that will go far in helping you fulfill your fiduciary responsibilities to this county. I stand ready to meet with you individually, collectively, with any part of your constituency to explain the intricacies of the legislation. And I have with me documents that I've compiled that introduces our organization, introduces the legislation, and I would like to have it, I don't know who to give this to. Okay, thank you. A part of the record that I've given this to you and I'm open. You know how to get a hold of me. I'm waiting for an invitation that was extended 2 years ago, and I'm ready to rock and roll. This needs to be built as a nonpartisan organization or movement. Again, thank you. Don't forget the root cause is our medical system. This legislation proposes a cure for that. Let's have a conversation. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Are there any other citizens wishing to address the board? See none, let's, 2 calls, let's rock and roll.
Yes, this is Florence Nelson. I live in Kalamazoo County, and I am calling, as I have many times in the past, regarding the YWCA Reproductive Health Act. Calling to say that I am not only disappointed, but really infuriated that the board decided at the very last minute to take away $80,000 from our veterans to give to the YWCA to help them kill babies and boys become girls and girls become boys. I think it is just deplorable. Absolutely. And I understand that the vice chair, Mr. Ray, is employed by the YWCA. Now, I wonder, would that be a conflict of interest? And also, because you have taken the funds for the veterans, which are federal funds, then the Hyde Amendment better come into effect, and our tax dollars really better be not paying for this grant to the YWCA. I just can't believe you did that. And I know you're relying on that measure passing in today's voting, but I have talked to many people who feel like the veterans get enough and they don't need any more, and they are not going to vote for that measure. So I wouldn't be so sure that it's going to pass. And if it doesn't, you have given $80,000 to kill babies and $20,000 only to the vets, which is a real disgrace. I think it speaks to the moral values that you are exhibiting, or should I say the lack of moral values. Thank you for listening, and once again, I feel you have made a terrible, terrible decision. Thank you, and I would like this played at both of the 4 o'clock and the 7 o'clock meetings. Thank you. Goodbye.
Is there any way we can play that a little bit?
Yes.
Nelson,
I live in Kalamazoo.
Good afternoon. My name is Ann Cooper, and I live in Portage, Michigan.
Please play my comments at both the 4 and 7 p.m. Kalamazoo County Board of Commissioners meetings on November 8th. Today, I'm calling to express my shock and extreme disappointment with the outcome of the October 17th KBOC meeting. Commissioners, what happened to you on October 17th? You completely reversed yourselves on the most vital moral decision before you in the 2024 budget. When the October 17th meeting began, your 2024 budget document indicated that KBOC will not fund the YWCA reproductive health grant request, which would use taxpayer funds to pay for abortions and gender affirming care, and KBOC will fund the needs of our veterans with $100,000 of our LATCF dollars. When the October 17th meeting ended, your 2024 budget was changed and now indicated that KBOC will fund the YWCA reproductive health grant request and will use our taxpayer funds to pay for abortions and gender affirming care, and that KBOC, with a motion suggested by Commissioner Morales, will take $80,000 from the veterans' LATCF dollars to fund the YWCA reproductive health grant request, and will now only fund the veterans' needs with $20,000 rather than $100,000. I agree completely with the statement made by Vice Chairperson Pro Tem Hepler. He stated that the vote which approved funding for YWCA reproductive health grant, quote, came at the 11th hour and deceived people, close quote, and should have been more fully discussed. He noted that we have heard for months of the opposition to funding this YWCA grant, and based on what we've heard, he did not feel this grant should be supported. Commissioners, your hypocrisy and blatant disregard for the will of your constituents is breathtaking. While your courteous manners are appreciated, your failure to carry out honestly the duties of public servants is a disgrace. Add to this, there is a deeply concerning conflict of interest evident in this decision, as your Vice Chair Ray is an employee of the YWCA, the entity receiving the $80,000. Thankfully, your corporate counsel, Barnes, is now aware of this fact. Additionally, Vice Chair Ray's failure to stand and participate in saying the Pledge of Allegiance at this meeting was blatantly disrespectful, especially for an elected government employee. Thank you to Chairperson Taylor for stating that when the contract is drawn up with the YWCA, the restrictions required by the Hyde Amendment that no federal funds may be used to pay for abortions must be followed. Since the LATCF funds are federal funds, the Hyde Amendment applies and must be obeyed.
Request for approval of the position eliminations and creations. Also under finance, request for approval of various budget adjustments and transfers, housekeeping. Health and Community Services, request for approval of position creations within the maternal child health division. Request for approval of a position creation / continuation within the Environmental Health Division. Request for approval of position creations within the Emerging Threats COVID Immunization Funding Award. Under Housing, request for approval of a position creation. Request for approval and signature of a grant agreement with, excuse me, with Better World Builders LLC in the amount of $200,000. Under Human Resources, request for the approval of contract extension with Nolte Insurance as benefits agent / broker of record. Request for approval of sales quotation with Tyler Technologies. Under MSU Extension, request for approval and signature of MSU Extension 2024 Memorandum of Agreement. Under Planning, request for approval of a resolution to post a public notice and set a public hearing for the 5200 East Cork Street, Kalamazoo, Michigan 49088, Brownfield Plan Amendment Number 4, Midlink. Under the Sheriff, request to accept fiscal year 24 Michigan Department of Corrections Community Corrections Grant. That's it. Consent agenda items shall be voted upon as a single, by a single vote for all the items I just read. Thank you.
There is a motion and support. Clerk Cox, will you please take roll?
Commissioner,
Confused, sorry, just real quick. The reason we didn't do the last one is we're gonna push that till 2 weeks later because they're still on the Community Corrections Advisory Board and we still have to, we need 2 more weeks. Yeah.
Commissioner Mazer,
Yes.
Commissioner Morales,
Yes.
Vice Chair Ray,
Yes.
Chair Taylor,
Yes.
Commissioner Wheeler,
Yes.
Commissioner DeLu,
Yes.
Commissioner Gisler,
Yes.
7 yes.
Takes us to unfinished business and general orders. The chair knows of none. New business? Commissioners, all right, the public comment again. This is an opportunity for citizens to address the Board of Commissioners. Give us your name and address and you have up to 3 minutes.
All right. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Adrienne Zaya. I'm the Public Policy Coordinator in Maternal and Child Health for YWCA of Kalamazoo. On behalf of YWCA Kalamazoo and our staff, our team, I want to offer my sincerest thanks for your support and the renewed financial commitment to YWCA Kalamazoo's Reproductive Health Fund. YWCA Kalamazoo believes that every person should be able to access essential health care, regardless of where they live, who they are, and how much they earn. Excuse me. Yet for many Kalamazoo residents, having financial means, transportation, and insurance coverage for much needed care remains a challenge. Resources like the Reproductive Health Fund are crucial for community members to gain access to essential reproductive and gender-affirming care, in turn improving their well-being and the health and well-being of their families. Over the last month and today, Kalamazoo County has demonstrated its dedication to equity, maternal and infant health, and the overall health and safety of county residents with this funding allocation. While state policymakers continue to push for access to reproductive rights, Kalamazoo County and you as Board of Commissioners have once again taken a critical step in this work within our state while helping to shape reproductive health access efforts in our community. We are thrilled to see the Kalamazoo County continue to be a driving force for change and ensuring access to care for those most marginalized is available. We once again thank the Kalamazoo County Board of Commissioners for your funding support and look forward to continuing to work with you all to provide Kalamazoo County residents with the critical care and resources they need to live their lives fully and authentically. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizens wishing to address the board? Okay. Next, we have reports of officers, bodies, administrator, controller. And before I get into mine, I talked briefly with corporate counsel about a conflict of interest, and she has something I guess you want to share. It's not to put you on the spot, but
Nope, that's fine. Administrator Catlin was going to indicate that I want to update the board. It'll take me a minute, though. I do want to make sure that we do understand and explain kind of the concerns that I had last time and then get the clarity around that. So during the regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners, so that was October 17th, a motion from the floor was made, and that's has been raised in some of the public comments tonight. The motion was for the board to allocate $80,000 from the LACTF, not in violation of the Hyde Amendment, to the YWCA for the quality and affordable reproductive care for Kalamazoo County residents. In reviewing and advising on that motion and future action, I raised concerns initially at that meeting that it should be reviewed for a potential conflict of interest and questions of whether any action involved statutory prohibitions such as incompatibilities, or whether our vice chair's employment by the YWMCA and whether they could vote on that, and whether there would be any issues in voting on a future contract with YWCA. Vice Chair Ray is employed by YWCA, and she shared that with me and was very open with this board and body of her employment. And she did share also that she received prior legal advice that she could vote on the matter when it came up in 2021. I didn't have access to that legal advice at the time, but I have had an opportunity to re-review it, discuss it, and reach out to Cole Stoker and Toski, who issued that original opinion. In looking at that legal analysis for conflicts of interest, incompatible offices, and statutory prohibitions on voting on certain contracts or any required disclosures, I just wanted to confirm that the vote that took place on October 17th was appropriate and followed statute. Given that the matter arose in the meeting, I didn't have the time to do that in the meeting, but I think it's critical that the board understand the outcome of that analysis. So I'm really pleased to advise, after detailed review, that neither a legally prohibited conflict of interest exists under MCL 4630. That would have required a 3/4 majority approval, and nor does Minnesota compiled laws 15.322 apply. That's the statute that prohibits a public servant from being a party directly or indirectly to a certain type of contract, and would prohibit a public servant from taking part in negotiations for that contract or amendments to that contract. So in brief, really under 15.322, that statute generally prohibits a public servant from being a party directly or indirectly to a contract between them and a public entity of which they are an officer or employee. And that is the key component, is that public or officer. Because Vice Chair Ray is not a an employee of a public entity, that statute has no application here. She's absolutely correct that that prior legal advice that she was able to vote, could vote then and could vote now on October 17th. For that statute to be implicated, you would need public entities on both sides of the contract. Given the YWCA is not a public entity and MCL 15.322 doesn't apply, none of the other requirements would technically apply either. So just in conclusion, the vote and motion to allocate the $80,000 to the LACTF as amended at the meeting passed with a 6-3 vote. And Vice Chair Ray was absolutely correct. She's not statutorily prohibited from voting, and there is no conflict. And I just want to make that clear on the record and make sure that that is known, given the comments that have been raised.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Differences of opinion, but the conflict of interest thing, I really want to get you addressed, and I appreciate you doing that. Next up, I'll do just the chair's report. We'll start with the letter we received from Parchment. There is some need, I think, as this board to take a look at our articles of incorporation with our CCTA and make sure that it's more equitable and fair, and that all municipalities have an opportunity to participate in the process that their residents are being taxed on. That being said, what is that appropriate amount of, number of people or number of positions for that CCTA? I think that's going to take a little more in-depth look, and probably with with equity and making sure that that is a big focus in our big lens, making sure all residents that are paying into that taxing structure are represented. So I'm glad that the mayor, I forgot his name, but I'm glad that he brought it to our attention, because it needed to be to our attention. So I appreciated that very much. Secondly, I kind of wanted to talk about where we've come as a county in the last 10, 11 months. I think that we've made tremendous strides as an organization. A lot of that has to do with this board, but a lot of that has to do with the staff as well. Tremendous strides in our organization and our effectiveness, really, to be a beacon to our citizens and our residents of Kalamazoo County, to offer efficient services and put our dollars where they'll be most effective and have the most influence and most impact on our residents' lives. So I think we're doing a really, really good job of that. And I wanted to just give kudos to both our staff and our commissioners. Where we go next, you know, what got you here is not what's going to get you there, as a wise man once told me. I'm going to be asking more from ourselves as commissioners, our staff. We going to need to do more. We've moved our county out from, you know, passable sort of government into, we're starting to become a beacon of the state, whether it's our housing millage, whether it's the efficiencies or medical debt relief, our childcare program, all these aspirational things that we've done in the last budget. Other counties are taking notice. And as we move up that ladder and become a higher and higher prestige of county government, we're going to be asked to do more. We're going to be asking a lot of people to do more. And the people that are going to benefit are not only our citizens, but also our employees of the county. So thank you to everybody here for what we've done and what we're going to do in the next few months. So Vice Chair Ray.
Thank you, Chair. Well said. So I don't have much. I just want to ask the administrator if he can speak to the money from the fund that folks are saying that we took from the veterans, so that everyone is clear that we didn't take money from the veterans. And then also just want to say that although unofficial, the veterans millage passed 31,502 yes to 8,950 no. And that is all that I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Administrator Catlin.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, and Commissioners. First, I'll start with answering Vice Chair Ray's question. So, or addressing the inquiry. So yes, the LATCF funding was not actually allocated to the veterans. It was more or less earmarked, and so through the budget process. And so there was discussion on allocating that full balance to veterans. However, at the end of the day, that wasn't finalized until the budget was passed. And so when the budget was passed, obviously the board decided to allocate a portion of it to veterans and then a portion of it to YWCA. The funding can be used in pretty much almost any regard as the board allocated it, so it's an appropriate use. And we've met with the Veteran Service Office, and that should be, that $20,000 should be more than enough to get them through the rest of this year. With the millage unofficially passing, we're estimating around $1 million to $1.1 million budget. As you know, their budget now is around 330,000. Something like that. So they have a substantial increase in capacity now to deliver more services to veterans more expeditiously and efficiently. So we're really excited for that, and I know they're very excited for that too. So just a couple of things, well, I guess several things I wanted to go over just really quick. First of all, I wanted to just lead off by expressing gratitude to all the staff. These packets that are before you every meeting take a lot of time to prepare from various offices, departments. So I want to just give a shout out to all those employees that have participation in that. There takes a lot of time and a lot of review, and hopefully we get it right. So we appreciate that. I wanted to point out that I sent the board an email kind of outlining something that happened in the legislature regarding the medical debt relief. So House Bill 4292 was approved, which in part allocates $4.5 million to units of local government within certain population ranges. Essentially, Kalamazoo County is within the population range. So while the programmatic rules have not been established yet, MDHHS will oversee that, and then we'll have to work with a third-party nonprofit to administer that program. So the nonprofit that will administer that is RIP Medical Debt. They're the only one in the country that are doing that. Because of that, I've already received sole source approval from our purchasing department to utilize them and contract with. So that'll be forthcoming as an agreement to the board to move that program forward. Also, I emailed the board about House Bills 4274 and 4275. Those create a county revenue sharing trust fund. And so in brief, what that means is that in revenue sharing, we would get more money. So please reach out to Senator Sean McCann to advocate for that. So that way we have more sustainable revenue that can be used to increase capacity, either through our employees or capacity through programs that we deliver in the county and services. Obviously, it was super important, and things that are a huge project that's taking up a lot of our time is the Justice Center. So that is, probably about 97% complete at this point. The outside of the building, if you've kind of taken a look and drove around the building, it's about 99% complete. They have a lot of pretty much all the landscaping's done. Exterior facade is all on. So we're really excited to see it. The building it's really starting to look like something. The inside, there's still some ongoing work, mainly on the 4th and 5th floors. There were some changes that were made there, so they're working on that. A lot of work is also occurring with commissioning various systems in the building. So these are your mechanical and electrical systems, as well as various information technology systems. We've made it abundantly clear to our owner's rep, and we kind of really had to remind them that county employees do not work on county observed holidays or on the weekends. And so they've tried to indicate that they, really need us available on weekends and county observed holidays, and we told them that's not going to happen. So wanted to make the board aware of that so that they know, so that you all know just kind of some of the things that we're going through on sort of a daily basis, but we've rectified those, and we've put our expectations forward on that. So we've basically said we expect them to complete their tasks during our operating days and hours that are posted. And then lastly, I wanted to just notify the board that lots of interviews are always happening for various positions. One of them in particular is the DEI coordinator. We had some very great applicants, honestly, super great applicants. So we're in the process of kind of reviewing those, going through the process of hopefully making an offer soon. So working with Director Gray on that. That position will be assisting Director Gray on programming efforts with regard to DE&I. So it'll be a tough decision, but we hope to have something to share with the board by next meeting. So that's all I have for you, and hopefully it answered your question, Vice Chair Ray. Yep.
Thank you. Commissioner DeLue, and then we'll go on.
Well, I just want to thank the voters of Kalamazoo County for approving the veterans millage. It's going to be have a huge impact on their local veterans service office. Until a couple of minutes ago, I was going to point out this is the first meeting I've been to where we had to involve corporate counsel, but so much for that. So, and I'm sure Commissioner Strebs is watching. I told her earlier, we're all thinking about her. That's all I can say.
Commissioner
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Jen, my heartfelt condolences go to you. I'm now an orphan and an in-law orphan. There's nobody left in the hierarchy of our families. And, it does happen, but it's a darn shame when it does, because it leaves a big empty feeling. And I know that you're feeling that, and please call me if there's anything I can do to help you ease through it. Although you're far more familiar with the way these things work than I am. It's just something that we all do go through, and I hope you make it through with flying colors. I'll back up a little bit on the veterans millage. As you know, I don't vote for many millages. John pointed out I did vote for one transit millage, but that's when it was actually going to reduce the burden on the rural communities. It was forget this, it's a reduction in taxes. How? Anyway, I did check fairly recently, and maybe it isn't the most formal of checking, but no precinct in the whole county voted to turn that veterans millage down. Even all my guys out in the boondocks, and they will frequently tell me nuts and vote a way other than how I would like them to. This time, everybody said yes. I think that really speaks well for the kinds of feelings we all have about our veterans. There, on another item, there is a 4-H vanity plate. I think it's been approved at the state level. So anybody that's big in, again, probably the rural communities, the fair and that sort of thing, might want to think about getting a 4-H vanity plate at the SOS office. We still have a few of those, and I'm sure you can get them online. And I also want to mention, again, the Avello discount, $25 off on a ticket, is still good through the end of next June. So if you got plans to take kids, grandkids, or neighbors, or anybody to Florida, to Orlando, it's the only place you can go, for spring break, let me know. I've got a bunch of these in the car, and Craig Williams, the airport director, has a closet full. So we're eager to have people go to Orlando and save money. And I did confirm with him just yesterday. I said, I have a note made to myself that 28,000 people flew from Kalamazoo to Florida in the first year that Avello was in business. He said, absolutely. Now, I do think that that counts. It's 2 flights if the same person goes down and then the same person comes back. So it's maybe only 14,000 round trips, but still, for a city the size of Kalamazoo, that's incredible. And we are the fair-haired boys for Avello. We do much better apparently than Lansing and Flint, and I don't know if they have any other places where they fly from to Florida, but they love us. Now, my colleague Wendy just told me, you know, I read something that says they're cutting back. Oh my goodness, I need to follow up on that because I'm oblivious to any of that stuff. I'm here blowing their horn, and you know, I will let you know if I was blowing this horn inappropriately. Thank you.
And Commissioner Gissler, the last time something came that close to passing every single precinct was 2008 medical marijuana, and it still failed in Alamo Township. So this one beat that. So, Commissioner Mazer.
Okay, well, first of all, I want to also thank the voters for approving the millage. And I'm in the same boat with you. I think that's the first millage I ever voted yes on. So, so again, thank you very much. Also, council, thank you so much for the clarification on the conflict of interest because I had major concerns about that. And I have a great deal of confidence in your council. Regarding the last meeting, the item to vote on for funding for the YWCA didn't rise to a priority when we set the priorities for the remaining funds. So it looked like the move to bring it up was not the usual way we bet things. So that was a concern. In many conversations with the board chair, he indicated that the abortion gender affirming care issue would not come in front of the board for a vote. And it indeed did, and it was not on the agenda. So in the past 11 months that I've served on this board, I think we have done a lot of good things. I think we could have done better than what we did at the last meeting. I'm still disappointed in how that turned out. So thank you.
Thank you. Understood. Commissioner Morales.
Thank you, Chair. So I too thank corporate counsel for clarifying, especially when we're dealing with a conflicting issue of gender affirming care, abortion, and doula services, which they keep leaving doula services out of that. Because in my experience since 2020, anytime that we have brought a proclamation forward or we're voting to push funds forward, we have always said that we work for a certain entity, should we recuse ourselves or not. So, I mean, it's no secret that I work for Valley. Vice Chair Ray works for the YWCA. So I think, you know, I appreciate public comments, but in my experience, again, since 2020, there have been some construed comments that makes it look like, you know, we're misrepresenting information. which is not true. So thank you for that clarification. Number two, that was supposed to be on the agenda from my understanding from whatever took place in agenda setting. So yes, I brought the motion from the floor, but it was because it was supposed to be on the agenda and it wasn't. And I don't know who can clarify that, but Chair, I'll let you speak to that motion, but it wasn't made up. It wasn't a last minute thing. We have been discussing this for the last, I don't know how many times YWC has been here, so we knew it was coming forward. So I think there are some internal things that we need to work on. I'm talking to the dais and the chair when there are conflicting measures as such as this $80,000 that one, I'm glad they clarified that we did not take any money from the veterans, nor would we ever. So what they call that, fake news, that's false. So I, in the past month, I just been a little irritated just with the inflammatory comments. Nobody spoke to the highly inflammatory comment that was made last session that upset our vice chair, and folks thought it was funny, and I didn't think it was funny when we are identifying to make a mockery of people who identify as such, and when we come and say I identify as a Black woman because of a DEI vote, that someone in the county were just asking for simple information. So we have a lot of work that we still need to do, but we still have to take care of each other. So for clarity, and I don't want to double down on things, that wasn't a made up motion. That was something that was supposed to be on the agenda that wasn't. And then I got the paperwork for it. And then in our corporate counsel's defense, it was shared with me that she didn't have the information that she needed. So then it just put more heat on Vice Chair Ray to make it look like she was hiding behind the bushes and she wasn't. So I hope everybody is clear. And if any of the rest of the constituents have any concerns, you can hit me up, the administrator up, and then corporate counsel up. But we do have to do better with our transparency. And I'm not blaming anybody. I wasn't necessarily in that agenda setting meeting, but it was my understanding that this was supposed to be on the agenda. So I'm not going to sit here and get slammed and let the rest of my colleagues get slammed for things that was supposed to be in order that was out of, I would say, my control at that time. Other than that, we have a proclamation ceremony at KVCC on Monday. Commissioner Mazur will be joining me and some other dignitaries that will be there as we start our Youth Apprenticeship Week, which I'm very, very excited about. Kalamazoo Valley is moving in a very good direction when we think about our youth and how we're gonna help them maintain employment in the future. And then again, to Commissioner Strez, you are in our hearts. If anybody wants to join me this week as well, I did send her dinner money so that she doesn't have to think about it. But I think for the rest of the week, I'm probably just gonna order something and just have it delivered so that she can focus on what she needs to. So other than that, have a good week. Thank you.
And just really quick to address the thing, there was a disagreement between Vice Chair Ray and I of whether or not to put that on the agenda. I said, no, do not put that on the agenda because I couldn't support that motion as it currently stated until you made that amendment to the motion. That's why it came up, but I didn't. There was discussion of putting that on the agenda, and I discussed with Administrator Catlin that I was not comfortable putting that on the agenda as written. So that's why it came from the floor with your amendment. Commissioner Wheeler.
Thanks, Chair. Want to give a shout out to the voters. Thank you for passing the veterans millage. It's really, really important for our county. Also do want to say that you can make motions from the floor. That's the thing. It doesn't have to be on the agenda just because you want it to be. And I also want to say thank you, or not thank you, my condolences to Commissioner Stubbs. I know she's going through a really hard time right now, and we need to support her and uplift her in any way that we can. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you. And with, Bo, if you're still up, it's time for bed. With that, we are adjourned.